Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra. I'm at Woodpecker's marketing team, and I'll be hosting the workshop today. And today we are going to be talking about follow-ups with Dino, who is a lead generation professional and one of our Woodpecker experts. And I know that many of you who have sent answers to my questions before the workshop, I know that many of you are already sending follow-ups. Some of you are not, which is also great. Dino will share tips for all of you about follow-up strategy. But before I pass on the microphone, I'll just let me just add that this workshop is being recorded, and afterwards I will send the recording to everyone who signed up. And also feel free to ask questions either in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and Dino will answer them as he goes. And I think that's all from my side for now. So I'll just pass the microphone to you, Dino, without further ado.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sandra. And thank you for having me on, of course. And thank you to all these people here who have joined. Hopefully this session here can kind of give some of you guys some new ideas or some new inspirations as it pertains to follow-ups. And it's actually a really important topic, because I don't know, I'd imagine that a lot of the people here probably have varying expert levels when it comes to cold emailing. So I'll try to kind of speak in a way that everyone will understand. But I know that a lot of times people just kind of learn the basics for sending that first message. What are the most important things, like subject line, the first line in the email, so aka the preview text, and call to action, length of the email, and all that good stuff. But a topic that is not really discussed so much is like, what do I do after that? What about my follow-ups? How are those supposed to be structured? So I was looking through a lot of the responses on the Q&A form, and I'd like to do a little screen share because I made some like notes and key takeaways and stuff like that. So give me a thumbs up, Sandra, if you can see that. My screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, I saw pretty much a wide variety of answers. We asked, how many follow-ups do you typically send? Do you space them apart equally, or do you have a different strategy? And do you change or keep the subject line? The answers were all kind of different, as I said. Some of you are just doing one singular message. Some of you are doing maybe like 3 to 4 to 5. That was maybe the most common one I've been seeing. Some of you guys are spacing the emails apart by equal amount of days. Some of you are taking a more unique approach. And again, I'm going to try to give some comments that will, benefit everybody. So one big misconception about sending follow-ups that I want to kind of comment on is, like, a lot of people are maybe scared about sending too many follow-ups because they think the prospect will get mad or annoyed or mark me as spam. And I really encourage you guys to all get that out of your mindset when doing follow-ups, and even with the tone of your messaging. I really encourage everyone to try to speak in a way that you're on the same level as the prospect. You're not like down there looking up at the prospect saying like, hello, sir, please give me a shot. Here's my lovely formal written message. I really try to make sure that, I'm speaking on their level, because I feel like I have something to offer them. I have a service or a product that's going to benefit them. And, I am not sending them something irrelevant. So I am genuinely sending them some kind of value to them. So if the emails are properly worded and the audience is properly, picked out, you shouldn't ever feel scared about following up too much. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as you kind of prepare yourself to write your follow-up messages, is you're on the same level as this prospect. So, be confident in the way you write. Write them as if you're writing, a colleague or even maybe a friend, maybe not like too informal, but kind of like, you're on the same level, if that makes sense. And then I saw a few comments on the answers saying like 1 or 2 follow-ups I feel is enough. And I personally think it's not, just because a lot of people, especially depending who your target audience is, they're getting a lot of emails, and you may are offering them something that they really need, and it got to their inbox and you have great deliverability, but they may have just not checked it at that certain day and time. I've seen it so many times, throughout my career doing this, that prospects will sometimes see a message and respond positively at message number 7. But again, you really have to be mindful about how you're writing the messages. So if you're writing them in a way that's, creative, not really too, like repetitive and things like that, you shouldn't worry about how many follow-ups you send. I saw somebody also ask about, what do I do with out of office auto replies? I'll show you something about that later. But essentially, these are some quick notes I wanted to kind of start off this call with. It's just about how you should, feel as you're kind of preparing to write these follow-up messages. So feel free to, as I'm going along here, write any questions or anything like that. But I'll go ahead and now start on the topic of, I think is probably, I like to start with how to space up your follow-ups. So I did see that a lot of folks like to just do, a system every 3 days, every 5 days, once a week. And I am not a real big advocate of that, just because I think that it looks a bit robotic, right? So you want to do things that are maybe not too predictable. And one strategy that does oftentimes work is the 1 hour follow-up after message 1, or it could be after message 3. I wouldn't do more than 1 hour follow-up, like, okay, let me send message 1, then follow up 1 hour later, and then follow up another hour later. But every now and then a 1 hour follow-up can be really powerful, because oftentimes when somebody is reading your email, they actually like what you say, they like what you're offering, but they just put you aside because it takes a lot sometimes to get someone to act on an email, but they've registered you in their mind. And then if you actually follow up with a very quick, like, oh, by the way, I also want to mention this, an hour later, they might actually be very likely to act or to book that meeting or to respond positively, or whatever your call to action is. So the 1 hour follow-up is something that, I would encourage everyone here to give a try with. And two, the reason a 1 hour follow-up can be really helpful as well is because if you are trying to put too much information in your first email, a lot of people are obviously not going to read it, so one thing that I'm a big fan of is having short emails around 120 words or less, just because through my experience, that's what I feel like people, are usually going to end up reading. They're not going to read a big novel that comes from a stranger. So it almost has to be like a very short, discrete kind of message. So if you have so much information that you want to share, but you can't fit it into one message, a good way to utilize the 1 hour follow-up is to also say, like, by the way, we also, XYZ. I also wanted to let you know that XYZ. So 1 hour follow-up is a really kind of creative way to potentially increase your chances of getting that positive engagement on your campaigns. And let's see here, like here are some like examples too about some potential ideas for you guys to use when you're doing your 1 hour follow-ups. And going back to like preview text, first lines. Sometimes a lot of people forget that in follow-up emails, the preview text is still important. It's still equally as important as it is in the first message. So like, this is my email account, and oftentimes what I, do in order, like what I look at in order to open up my daily emails is this preview text, the first line. So those are the things that, pull people in psychologically. So on your follow-ups, also make sure to really have a kind of, first line that pulls somebody in. And a way to do that sometimes is, here's a few ideas. So if you're reaching out to multiple people from the same company, a good thing to say in the 1 hour follow-up is, just wanted to give you a heads up that I also introduced myself to your colleague, Steve, in hopes of bringing this to your radar. So then, they see their colleague's name being mentioned in the preview text. This is something that can catch their attention. This is something that's different from the standard, the crappy cold email with the, hi, how are you today? I hope that your day is wonderful. This is something that's really useful in the 1 hour follow-up. And two, I recommend starting off your follow-up with the 1 hour follow-up like this, just kind of lowercase, and it looks like you're continuing, a message, almost like if you're chatting with somebody online, and you want to, like, you're telling your spouse, like, get eggs and chicken at the grocery store. Also get this. Same thing with this 1 hour follow-up is just also wanted to give you a heads up. I also introduced myself to Steve to get this on your radar. So that's a clever trick. I'm a big fan of, if you have your prospects' phone numbers, I like to use that in the follow-ups. So like, let me know if it makes more sense to give you a call on, phone number, so I can introduce myself and get this on your radar. So if they see their phone number in the preview text, they're like, okay, this guy really does know me. So let me see what this is about. So this is a follow-up first line that works for me. Or the different psychology with the same sentence, instead of, let me know, does it make sense to call you there? Would you be opposed to having me give you a call here? So basically now I'm putting the ball in their court even further. And if they say, well, no, I wouldn't be opposed to that, that means yes, go ahead and call. And then this is a bit more maybe extreme, but again, this is like an attention getter that I have used in some projects. And if I have the company's actual physical address, sometimes we bluff. We're not actually going to send them anything to their address, but we'll say, like, we're also willing to send, to mail or FedEx, what our assessment or whatever, it is, could be in your situation, in your use case, something that you could say in order to, like, we can send something to your address, just in order to get them to see their address on that preview text. And then again, it's something that's pulling them in, and it gets them to maybe open your message. So these are a few like variations of different first lines that I like to use for this 1 hour follow-up or just follow-ups in general. And notice again, like all lowercase, like just wanted to let you know, let me know if this, or would you be opposed to, we are also willing, like it's very clear with this kind of like writing style that this is just a continuation of the message that came in like very recently. So and obviously these are just the first line, so there's going to be something below this as well, content or the call to action or whatever it is. Just of course try to still keep it short and sweet and stuff like that. Let me open up the Q&A here. How do you attach previous message to your follow-ups? So yeah, that goes kind of to the topic on like changing subject lines, and that is one that I'll get to after the follow-up first lines. Yeah, so recordings will be available. Do you put signing off text and signature on short 1 hour follow-ups? This is a great question. I typically do have the signature in most of my emails just by default, but yeah, it is actually a really good idea. I have done it in the past where I didn't include the signature in the 1 hour follow-up because it is maybe a very, very short email. A good strategy also to use for the 1 hour follow-up is you can, instead of using your actual company signature like you used in the introductory email, you can do the sent from my iPhone. So it looks like, oh man, I forgot to mention this to this guy. Let me, let me just get on my phone and write this to him. So this way it looks like you actually went on your phone and you messaged this guy. So sometimes you can throw this in here to kind of, do a little bit of trickery. So those are a little bit of some ideas to get you guys potentially, get some juices flowing, some creative ideas going for follow-ups in general and these 1 hour follow-ups. But first lines, the first sentence, it's really, really, really important for every single one of your emails. It's always going to be a dictating factor when people, want to decide whether or not to open up your messages. So cool. Maybe should I look in the chat? I guess I'll just look in the Q&A. Right, Sandra?
Yeah, I think we have just questions about following up on the same thread versus starting a new one. So I'm not sure if you want to go to that, or do you want to add something else before we move to that that aspect?
Yeah, sure. We can go ahead and kind of talk about that now. So I usually like to just keep one subject line for message one and then keep the rest blank, meaning that it's all going to be on the same thread. And the reason for that is it has so many advantages. One of the advantages of that is like, and here I'll write a quick note, like advantages of, same thread subject. One of the advantages is that when the prospect opens, they'll see your previous emails, like if they get your email number 3 and that's the first time they've opened it, they'll see what you wrote to them in messages 2 and 1. Therefore, you don't have to repeat yourself in messages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You can give them different value adds. So that's like one thing, is like the prospect sees everything you wrote to them in the past. And a way to use that to your advantage as well is like sometimes you can refer back to what you wrote. Like in message number 3, you can say like, like something like, and if you can, I did an assessment of your company's ads, and you can review that back in my message number one in case you didn't see it before. And then, you can use your previous messages kind of as a reference point in your future messages as well. So that's one advantage. Another advantage is just the fact that it's going to have that whatever, your first subject line was, it'll have that on all of the other ones. And that's also going back to the psychological stuff. It's like when somebody sees or the forward, those are things that make somebody think that, okay, this is a conversation I'm involved in, so I should probably take a look at it. So that's why I'm a big fan of continuing the thread. There can be times where it might make sense to start off with a new subject line, but in my experience, I rarely come across that situation unless maybe I'm retargeting the same audience like many months later. I want to have a fresh start with them, and I don't want them to see what I wrote to them in the past. Then I would obviously do like a new subject line and stuff like that. But for one campaign only, I would personally keep the same thread. So let me check out the Q&A if anyone has any other questions when it comes to like subject lines and the thread. So how do I get attention to my CTA without giving a bold and attracting spam filter? That is something CTAs, we'll get to that a little bit later in the call, like follow-up CTAs. After the first 1 hour follow-up, when should the next follow-ups come? If still no reply after 1, 2, 3, etc. follow. People can be on vacation, any specific or days? Okay, this is a very good question here. So listen, there with follow-ups, there's really no solution that's going to fit all you guys. This is just, something that is going to maybe give you some new ideas, and really you're going to have to do some testing for yourself, because every audience is different. Every product and service is different, and everyone has to have a different approach with it. There's not one strategy that works for everybody. So you have to keep that in mind. For example, if I've sent the 1 hour follow-up, when is a good time to send the next one? That's really up to you. I probably wouldn't recommend doing another follow-up the following day. Typically I do like the intro message and a 1 hour follow-up, and then I don't follow back up until next week. Give them some time to cool down, or whatever, however you want to phrase it. So yeah, and if they still don't follow up after 1, 2, 3, etc. follow-ups, you really have to keep that, like how should I say, like you have to keep that tenacity going. Like if you took the time to build a list of prospects that you believe will benefit from your service or prospect or your product, you should keep going after them until they give you some feedback. Because like I said in the beginning, you shouldn't be afraid of these people. You're on their level, you're eye to eye, you're speaking to them as an equal. So don't be discouraged if they haven't replied to you after messages 1, 2, and 3, and 4. All that means is that you maybe do have to try some different like first lines. A big indicator too is like you should actually check, are these people actually opening my follow-ups and just not replying? Because if somebody's just not opening anything, that could mean a variety of reasons. It could mean maybe your deliverability is off, or in fact your first line and subject line is off, and stuff like that. So look if they're opening. If they're opening time after time and not replying, I would say you're almost there. Just keep kind of pushing them, and they'll say something. But if they're not opening at all, you'll have to kind of have a different, approach. You have to kind of take a step back and evaluate, is it a technical issue, or is it really, something with my copy that's off. So that's a great question. As far as any specific days or times, that also varies. So for most audiences, you obviously want to email them during that person's business hours in that person's time zone. So always be, conscious of that. If your whole audience is in US Eastern, message them in their time zone, in their office hours. But if you're really trying to get the attention of like a CEO at like a bigger company, that's really the only time when I recommend like sending at very unusual hours. CEOs are usually going to either check emails at early in the morning, like way early before anyone gets to the office, or very late at night. So if you have a specific audience of CEOs, I would say play around with those times. As far as days, a lot of people believe that, oh, I shouldn't email on Mondays because people are tired from the weekend, or I shouldn't email on Fridays because people are getting ready for the weekend. I don't have any like personal data to support that. Like, as a matter of fact, I've had some of my best days are actually on Mondays and Fridays, especially Fridays, because typically I have a softer call to action in my emails. So on Friday, oftentimes people are more cheerful, and there maybe sometimes also you have to keep in mind, a lot of these people, they've probably finished their work for the week and they're just kind of looking at the clock ready to go home. And if they get an email and they have nothing else to do, and it's a friendly email, they're oftentimes going to reply to it. So don't always just automatically assume about Monday and Friday are bad. And the same way you shouldn't assume like follow-ups, sending too many follow-ups is bad, so great question. How do I time the 1 hour follow-up considering Woodpecker spreads the emails evenly over time allotted for sending? Sandra, do you want to answer that one about like this like technical one?
Yeah, I can answer that. You can set the follow-ups in Woodpecker to go after not only like 1 day or 2 days, but also in a matter of hours. So I guess it won't be, precisely 1 hour, but it will be about 1 hour. Yeah,
cool.
I hope that answers your question.
Cool. I think the 1 hour follow-up and the continuing on the same thread, I guess we've covered those topics pretty well. Going back, I wanted to mention one good little trick too about reaching out to CEOs, because I said you have to maybe message them at unusual hours. This doesn't really have to do with follow-ups, but a good idea is to actually email their executive assistants. I've done campaigns in the past where I just email the executive assistants of the people who I'm trying to reach out to. And if you frame it correctly, those people will actually, make that meeting happen sometimes, and they'll, forward your information over to their boss. So if it's something you've never tried and you really do have to get in touch with like big time decision makers at big time companies, just keep in mind you can do a campaign dedicated to executive assistants. So cool. And also, going back to like the trick about mentioning the person's like the colleague's name, I just want to share this hack with you guys, because obviously you don't want to spend hours and hours like creating a spreadsheet like this here, where you have, you have your prospects, you have the company name, and then you have a colleague column, and now you have to see, okay, who else is at LucidLink? Okay, Dennis is at LucidLink. Let me write that. That could take a long time. So I'll show you guys a trick, and this is hopefully going to be a cool freebie for you. There's actually an Excel command that you just have to make sure you have it like first name, last name, title, company name. Otherwise, it won't work. But this is how you can do it. So here you're going to put this formula. So I think the best thing to do is just for you guys to, or actually I can just write it down in the chat, copy it into the chat, and then you guys save this formula when you're trying to gather all the colleagues' names. So and now just press enter, and then you drag this thing down, and then Excel will automatically like calculate who is a colleague, like who are all the people on this sheet who are at the same company, and like what's like one of Sarah's colleagues' names. Like, and the cool part about this, it's never going to match Sarah with Sarah, so you don't have to worry about that. Like, here's Jody with Sarah, Sarah with Jody, Luke with Sarah. So now you have that variable there, and the only thing too, you have to make sure like you see all these nuns. So you just have to get rid of those nuns, and the easy way to do that is by doing this. So first you want to copy, and then you want to paste it like this, so it's just in like text form instead of these formulas like being active in all the cells. So paste it back into this 1, 2, 3. And then you can sorry guys, my Excel is being slow, but what you can do is CTRL and F, which is find, and then you can type in none, and then you can highlight all the ones that, okay, perfect. So instead of me like explaining, let me just do it. So CTRL F, find what? Find none. Now you click find all. Now CTRL plus the letter A. Now you've highlighted all the nuns. Just do a right click, clear contents, and now boom. Now all you have remaining are the colleagues' names. So now you can do that follow-up for the ones who do have colleagues. You can do that follow-up like, hey, Ben, just a heads up, I'm also reaching out to Daniel. Boom. So now you have that. And yeah, I hope that can be something useful for you guys. And while I'm on this Excel sheet, I just want to kind of like point out that you should really try and take advantage of all these data points that you guys have access to. Obviously, all of you are going to have different lead generation sheets and stuff, but I think for the most part, many of you are going to have these kind of data points. So don't be shy to use some of these, like phone number, address, even email. I think that's another one. That's another good first line is to use, is like maybe email isn't the best way to reach you or to connect with you about this topic. So really try to, take advantage of all these different snippets. That's the Woodpecker language. So really try to take advantage of all those different snippets, but always speak your emails out loud to yourself, just to like make sure they sound normal, like they sound like they're flowing. Like if you speak one of your email templates out loud and it just sounds like weird, I would probably say it's going to seem weird to the person who's reading it. So take advantage of these, but just of course try to fit them within the context of the actual messages themselves. So cool. That's about the colleague hack, and just about these other variables. I want to show you another trick, and this is, you can do this for your first email or for a follow-up email, especially if you're deciding to change the subject line. I call this trick the forward follow-up. So like if you guys remember when we were in school, middle school, elementary school, if somebody was talking about us, we would always be interested. Okay, who was talking about me? What were they saying? The same can be kind of, in my opinion, the same concept applies with forwarding, especially if it's like forward, like if the subject line is like forward, show this to John. If I saw, in my case, show this to Dino, if I saw this, I'm opening it, so because it to me, it sounds like somebody's talking about me. They've forwarded it to somebody, and they want me to see it. So I'm gonna try to open it. And the way I do this sometimes is like, this is an example, like, hi, John, I create like an email that is, somebody besides the founder, like, of your company. So it can be a fake persona or it can be a real persona. This is just how I do it. I create like a fake persona, and she sends this message to John, the prospect, and she says like, hi, John, our founder, Jordan, wanted me to share this with you. He reviewed, your current Facebook and TikTok ads to provide some additional insight, which could improve the performance. And then just Bridget, I didn't do on this one, I definitely don't recommend doing the formal signature. And then you do these dashes, like, when you get a forwarded email, and then you actually physically write, like, when you get a forwarded email, you get the from, the sent, the to, the subject, and then you do like, hey, Bridget. So this is a fake message to Bridget, who's forwarding this to John. And then, you say like, Bridget, please send this to John at Walmart. I took a dive into their current ads, and I think they would find my remarks helpful. Let me know if they get back to you. And then you can, insert remarks here, do the sent from iPhone signature. And it looks like, like somebody, it looks like this guy is important because he asked his assistant to forward this off to, John. So it gives that already like, oh, wow, this guy is big time. He forwarded this to his assistant to share with me. I should read what he has to say. So this is a really good trick. And then you can just do like a sequence around this as well. Like you can do your follow-ups like, hey, did you see our founder's remarks? Did you see our founder's comments? Blah, blah, blah. Please refer back to it in the first email. So that's, something that I think a lot of you guys could maybe play around with is the forward follow-up. And I can even share like a template of this just so you guys have access to it, and you can just copy paste it. And of course, like rearrange it how you see fit. So let me throw that in here. Cool. And so yeah, that's another trick. And here's some more like first lines for follow-ups that have been really effective to me and for me in the past. So I went over the colleague, I went over the phone number. This is one that I actually had mixed feelings about sharing because this is really my baby. This first line for follow-ups, and this usually gets a really, really great reply rate. I mean, for years now. And I hope you appreciate my persistence, John, or first name, and then dot dot, and then you say like, the reason I'm trying so hard to connect is because I really believe, I firmly believe we can do this, this, that. And maybe some of you guys who are, in the audience are thinking, wow, that's pretty aggressive. But the reality is that this works really well. And oftentimes the most common reply I get is like, I actually do appreciate your persistence. Thank you so much for putting in the effort to chase me down. So try this one out. I hope you appreciate my persistence. And then, like I said a few minutes ago, this could be also another good like first line later down the road in your sequences, like is, email, like in this case is John@Walmart, maybe not the best address to contact about this. Just something that gets them to open, just something that hooks them in. So yeah, and then with follow-ups, as I said before, like after your first line, what you do afterwards is really important. I know somebody asked about the call to actions a while ago. Let me hop back into the Q&A to see if there's anything new here. FYI, change the none at the end of the formula to quotation, and then you don't need to, yeah. Oh, cool. So for that formula I shared, if you do this, you actually don't have to deal with all those nones. So thank you for that tip. So for those of you guys who are planning on using that colleague formula I shared earlier, keep this in mind and you can avoid that extra step. So cool. I appreciate that. Is there anything in the chat? Read an email. It is old-fashioned way, which really makes. Okay. So Adam said, faking the forward, faking the re in email subject. It is old-fashioned way, which really makes leads mad. So I would say like this is something that I started our discussion with, is like if you're so worried about your prospects getting mad at you, I really believe you need to get out of that, and the re's and the forwards, in my opinion, are not something that get a prospect angry, because we're in the B2B space. Or you have to keep in mind, we're not tricking, like we're not in the B2C space trying to trick people to purchase something that they don't want. We're reaching out to a audience that we selected ourselves. We believe that they will benefit from this, and all we're trying to do is get them to hear us out. And if they're genuinely not interested, that's fine. They can unsubscribe. They can let us know they're not interested, but that there should not be a reason, for the most part, for prospects to be mad at us for just trying to get their attention because we have something that could bring their company value. So the re's, the forwards, I disagree with you there, Adam. I think that it's actually very beneficial, and you need to get out of that mindset about making people angry. Of course, out of every 100 people, there's always going to be somebody who's angry, no matter what you do in life, whether it's cold emails, whether it's like you go out in public and you just say hello to 100 people and offer them $1. I guarantee you one person is going to be unpleasant. The same is with cold email, but you can't let those people discourage you from using some of these like methods I'm showing you. So I hope that kind of makes sense here. Would you recommend sending a video demo to the prospect of your service as part of your follow-up sequence? So if I'm understanding that correctly, like I think what you're asking, Dan, is what I recommend in my follow-up, saying like, hey, I can send you a demo video of our service if that's easier to, like, instead of asking them to go on a call or whatever. You can, I mean, this is something you'd have to test for sure. Like the call to actions, that's always going to be things that you have to test around a little bit. If you have, for example, one video demo that you want to send to everybody, you can send it, but you have to be confident in that video demo. You have to be confident in the quality of that video. Like if somebody watches that video, you have to feel confident that, wow, I'm sure that like I've touched on all the pain points of my prospect here. And when they open this and watch this, what I have to say, they're going to jump on a call. They're going to take action. So keep that in mind. I think it's a solid, idea, solid concept, because you want to maybe change things up, not just always ask for a call. Like I mentioned before, like maybe offer to send your assessment to their office address or whatever. So yeah, I mean, essentially video demo, try a bunch of different things in your campaign, whether it be hop on a call, let me send you a video demo. Let me send you if you like, I can send you a PDF file, anything that could bring value to them. I would, approve of that. So there are only people with, so Patrick said, actually there are only people with theirs emotions, and they talk to each other in offices. I'm not really sure what that was referring to. I have tried different approaches, reaching out to bulk random prospects, hand-picked prospects who would need our service. My open rates are more than 50% throughout. Haven't made a call in any more than 6 months. Maybe anyone can give me a hint what is wrong. So for something like this, Natalie, we would definitely need more context. That would probably require a deep dive into everything. So from what your company is offering, what your offer is, what's your unique value proposition, what have been your strategies, what's been the copy, all that stuff. So would need more context on that. Michael, what minimum metrics open reply do you look for to validate steps in a sequence, please? Good question, Michael. So ideally, when a campaign is complete, what I usually consider to be the norm. So for example, if I've had a campaign with 5 steps in total, I would consider it to be normal to see a final open rate anywhere between 50 to 70%. Anything below 50%, I typically personally think that something could be wrong, either with the copy or with the technical setup. And if it's above 70%, that means we just really killed it. But per step, so per actual email, what is a acceptable open rate? I would say 30 to 40%, usually per actual singular message. Sometimes maybe in the mid to high 20s, of course, higher the better, right? So if a singular message gets 50% opens or more, that's great. But on average, kind of that range as far as open rate. As far as reply rate is concerned, so when a campaign is completely done, I expect or hope for a final reply rate of between 5 to 10, 12%. That the double digit, being more on the higher side, obviously. But if it's below 5%, to me, that's an indication that, and of course, if let's say, for example, the open rate is extremely high, but the reply rate is really low. To me, it usually means that, okay, subject line is good, first line is good, people are opening, technical setup is good. The rest of the stuff is bad. So it could be a variety of things. The message is too long, the CTA doesn't make sense, or, a mixture of all of those. So that's usually, what I look towards when I'm thinking about metrics, and how to validate steps in a sequence. So if it's like performing well or not. Can re and forward and subject lines negatively affect your deliverability? Also, is having the same subject to keep all Woodpecker follow-ups within the same string more beneficial than having different subject lines to attract attention in different ways? So from my experience, the re and the forward in the subject line has not negatively affected deliverability. So that's just my personal experience. Of course, like with me and the typical campaigns I'm working on, we're not doing massive blasts, reaching out to like an audience of 10,000 people. So we're usually doing a very like hand-picked approach, very kind of intimate outreach. So just be mindful that when you do anything in large mass, you're going to really have to make sure that you obviously have the technical setup to support that. But yeah, like try to be mindful of things that could affect deliverability, keywords that could maybe affect it. But re and forward, from my experience, have not done anything negative in that respect. And then yeah, like I kind of went over why I feel it's beneficial to have the same string, the same messaging string all the way through. And I personally prefer to have it in one campaign, have the same string go all the way through. And if you want to retarget those people again in a separate campaign, that's when I would implement the next subject line. So that's, my advice for you there. It was about getting people angry with fakes. I guess like getting people angry with like fake forwarding, I think, Patrick. And I mean, technically it could, how you interpret it, you can say that it's not necessarily a fake, because like the example here I showed you, it truly is like the founder, Jordan, he wants to reach out to John. And he actually did leave a personalized remark for each of the prospects. So this was an honest message, but we just kind of packaged it in this format, which makes it a bit more interesting. So again, I have to disagree that this is some kind of unethical approach, but like when it comes to marketing and cold emailing, we can have, we can have conversations about ethics and what is right and wrong, what makes people happy and sad, but that's a whole different topic. Here I'm really just trying to share what, in my experience, has gotten intrigue and what has gotten people's attention. So hopefully that makes sense. I think there's been a bunch of messages, right? Is there any way to personalize the follow-ups in an effective way? Is taking me ages if I have a lot of prospects. So again, like that's where I recommend trying to take advantage of all those snippets that you have. So if you have a huge audience, the first thing I would actually do is, like, anytime you have a huge audience, you want to make sure that they're all correct, like that they're all qualified prospects, because if you're just emailing a ton of people for the sake of emailing a ton of people, it might not work as effective, versus if you actually know for a fact, like, here are the people who definitely will benefit from my service given their criteria. But going back to your question, how to personalize follow-ups at scale without like doing unique icebreakers, try to take advantage of like these things like email, phone number, address, or industry. But of course, go back to and read it, sound it out loud, and try to just make sure that it sounds normal, that it sounds natural. So that's my suggestion there. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go through a ton of these. Maybe because I don't want to take up the rest of the call going through all of these. But if you see any like interesting ones, Sandra, feel free to let me know. But I think I've answered a lot of these, if not most of them.
Yeah, we have new questions in the Q&A box. If you'd like to answer those.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think we can also go to the CTAs and follow-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was wondering if you're sending follow-ups and you see people are opening the emails but not responding.
Yeah.
Do you stick with the same CTA or do you change it?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do CTAs. So in general, I actually always mix up the CTAs, and I used to, for the longest time, just have the same CTA in most of my emails and most of my clients' emails, which was, I'd love to get you on an introductory call. Here's my Calendly link. And I do that for all the messages. What I notice now works as a better CTA is actually being having a softer call to action, which is gauging their interest. Like, does this sound interesting? How do you feel about this? Does it make sense to have a conversation about this? Because it's much less, I guess, much less work, much less threatening, or however you want to word it, to the prospect themselves. And if all they have to do is say, yeah, that sounds interesting, then you can go in and, do the meeting with them or push them for the meeting. So for me personally, I typically mix up the call to actions by doing a variation of just gauging their interests. And sometimes the call to action can be if I have their phone number, would it make more sense to call you here? So some of these examples that I gave earlier with the first lines, you could make the argument that this is actually the call to action. So kind of disguising it in different ways, but ultimately it's the same thing. I want to just meet with you. I want, 15, 30 minutes of your time. But here's just some different, visuals that might get your attention. So that's kind of my opinions on call to action and the follow-ups. And I actually saw a really good question about out of office replies and auto replies. So I actually have set up a Zap through Zapier. And you guys can give this a try yourselves if you want, or you can do it manually. But I think a lot of you have noticed that when a person replies with an auto reply, they oftentimes say something like, hey, I'm out of the office right now. Please contact my colleague, John, and here is their email. So, for example, let me see if I can find one. So yeah, here you go, here. Thank you for your email. I'm out of office. In case you need immediate assistance, contact one of our marketing team members, And here he left an email. And so what I do is I collect these and I actually set up a separate sequence. So this is going to Alan, A-L-O-N. And what I say is, hi, Alan, I got a reply from Amir saying to contact you about this, blah, blah, blah. And I basically go back into the regular sequence originally. And those perform really well because I'm mentioning his colleague, Amir, in it. So that's the way I try to take advantage of out of office replies. I know that's not really on the topic of follow-ups, but I've set up a Zap where I kind of remove that email. And once I get rid of all the rest of this stuff, I've set up a Zap where that email address gets zapped into a new sequence in Woodpecker. And yeah, that's something you can do. Or you can just collect these manually. You can collect auto replies manually. Just check your spam folder. Sometimes auto replies go there. You can set up a filter in your mailbox to not have auto replies go to your spam. So that's another little trick to think about when you guys are doing your outreach. Let's see, anything else in the Q&A here? Any general suggestions from your experience to stay from the spam folder? So yeah, I mean, general suggestions is like, no matter how clever and creative you are with all these like different tactics with follow-up, subject lines, call to actions, first lines, always ask yourself in the beginning, like before you click play, are all of these people really genuine prospects? Have I put in the effort to actually like make sure that these are my prospects and that we could help their companies? And if the answer is yes, then that is the biggest thing you can do to prevent yourself from going to spam, because you are offering companies, you know, a service or a product that you feel like will benefit them. And then of course, if you're messaging them in ways that are not like repetitive and too overly invasive, you will, you know, have much better time with your deliverability, a much better experience with your deliverability, and you won't get too many people, you know, pressing spam on you. And of course, always offer the opt-out option. If you don't offer that, I have seen people get angry, like even if you write under your signature, let me know if you're not interested. I prefer to just offer the opt-out link personally. So that's my suggestion for you there, Abhishek. And yeah, I mean, I hope that the stuff on this call has helped. Maybe, like I said in the beginning, just it's about maybe getting some kind of light bulb effect for your own outreach, some kind of inspiration. I don't expect you to follow these kind of things exactly how I did it, but maybe like some variation of it, just to get the creative juices flowing so that, you know, you guys perform well and see success on your follow-ups. I think we're at the 1 hour mark. So do you have any final things that you want to go over, Sandra?
Nothing from me. If you guys have any more questions, oh yeah, someone just asked, what is the best way to add an opt-out option? Dino, if you could take that, I'll just paste your contact information in the chat while you answer it.
Yeah. So on Woodpecker, you'll see like to add that unsubscribe feature at the end so of your email. Typically, I like to do it under the signature in like a smaller font. So I believe it should be available as one of the snippet options. So yeah, that's usually the best way. And like I like to actually like reword the just from it saying like unsubscribe, I like to have it say something like, you know, if this doesn't apply, you know, let me know here and I'll update my files. Or just some creative little things, and just in the let me know section is where you apply the unsubscribe thing. I think personally it just looks better visually, and people get the point where they have to go. So that's my recommendation for that.